Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever in the world you might be. I am Nicole BC, and you know everything. Okay, and I also tried to find a little intro for you, which was hilarious because so much of your content is video content now, which I love and is amazing. So yeah, we'll circle back to that where people can tune in and tune up your signal, and we can drop in whatever you want to share or are fascinated about or are working on. But I guess this can begin the official intro if you're ready.
I'm ready.
Okay, it's going to be really short and sweet because I am pulling it from your LinkedIn. And I think in the vein of relatables, you've done some really big things. You've worked with some really big names. And in as much as I'm sure those are things that you are proud of, there is also a recognition of some attachment and potentially some ego. And we can talk about all of your adventures, no judgment, no shame. But even your LinkedIn just says, built an agency, sold an AI company, created a self-organizing, decentralized community. That's it. That's the bio. So I know there are many things that you're working on. I often like to invite people to kind of start with the origin of this particular conversation, but I'm going to jump in. And then I'm going to ask you to talk about your origin story, Nicole, because I think a lot of people are going to find inspiration in that. I think they're all going to hear something that's possible for them, that's potential for them, and that is probably challenging for them. So you and I met, we were introduced by a shared connection at a comedy show. And you were referred to as the other Nicole. I'm pretty sure I was also referred to as the other Nicole. And this was one of my very first outings post a hurricane. And it was really amazing to be able to step into a space that felt nurturing and understanding. And that has a lot to do with the various spectrums upon which we were all playing. But I am so honored to be having this conversation with you today. I know that despite time being a construct, the generosity you were offering myself and the listeners by sharing your space and time intersection on this continuum is really special. So Nicole, how do you find yourself here today? And tell me about arriving in this moment.
Yeah, it was fun meeting you that way. And, you know, being at a comedy show wasn't the appropriate venue to dive into the conversation that I wanted to have with you, which is what we're going to be doing today. So I'm glad this is happening. I perceived you to be one of the first people online that really seemed to get me. And so I'm coming into this conversation with like gratitudes, like, thank you for seeing me. And I think it's probably due to the fact that you've been looking for people like me and you have a podcast talking to them, so you know how to spot them. But it was really fun meeting you because you're like, I see what you're doing. And I find it to be really unique. And I want to play there. And you've actually followed through, which is another reason I'm excited to be walking alongside you, because you've brought my company, Jumpsuit, you've brought us clients who are ready for the kind of work that I've been dreaming of doing. And you're spotting the people who are ready for it and making the connections. So I just want to start by a massive, like, fuck yeah, and thank you.
Well, I appreciate that. It's funny, when people ask me what I do, I have no idea how to answer that question, but I used to call myself like a problem solver. I now realize there's a lot of judgment just in and of that statement, but now I kind of see myself more as a bridge. And it's just so fantastic that people are doing business the way that you're doing business now. And I always like to define the terms that I use because I think we can interpret them any which way and we're all correct in that. But to me, business is just taking your dreams seriously enough to actually build them in the 3D real world, which is scary as fuck for anybody who's done that. And so to be able to find supporters and other visionaries that can potentially see your blind spots and connect those dots for you in business, as any founder, CEO understands, we all start wearing all the hats. But at some point we got to take those hats off and go like put them hopefully on much smarter, brighter, skilled people in our experiences. And so I perceive you as being one of the best. And it's really exciting getting to see you connect with, the people I've been working with, and to just, again, continue to build the world that I believe in and I think is possible. So it is an honor and a privilege.
Mm-hmm. Well, aren't we adorable?
I know we could just blow sunshine up each other's skirts all day. But I do kind of want to give my people and the listeners, you're not my people, you're just listening, an opportunity to understand your journey, because I think even more so than my own, it is incredibly relatable. I haven't had the corporate experience. I haven't necessarily had the kind of indoctrinated experience I know that you've had. And I don't want to tell your story for you or even tell you which parts of your story you could tell. But I know I get so much inspiration, and a lot of it isn't even necessarily shared. So I would love to know what you think your kind of like highlight reel is, if you will, and feel free to get into the details as much as you want. But
yeah, happy to. Yeah, I would say that I learned pretty young that I could do things that other people thought were impossible. And I experienced that in my early 20s when I was a junior in college, creating a coffee shop. So a lot of people have coffee shops now. It's like a super common thing. But back then there were not business plans online. There was nothing that I could chat GPT and say, help me figure out how to do this. But I was in a small college town, Oxford, Ohio, Miami University of Ohio. And there was just a Starbucks, and it was so lame. Like, I just wanted a place that was vibey and cool and had great music where I could hang out with my friends and, do work. And so I created
coffee?
I don't remember.
Like. Yeah. Okay. So I think that's like a really important part of this particular entrepreneurial adventure.
Yes. Yeah. I just wanted the space. I wanted the atmosphere. I wanted to find the people who liked to hang out in independent coffee shops. Miami is I don't know if it's still like this, but it's very preppy. It was like, there was a certain, which is fine, but like, I was like, where are my people? And I think back then I was looking for other neurodivergent individuals. I just didn't have that language. And I wanted that atmosphere around me. And so a friend and I tried to convince all of these quote unquote adults to create this thing. We put together a plan. We found the right spot. We did all the groundwork for it. And there was one person in particular that said, why don't you guys do it? And I thought, yeah, why not? So I went into a bank, asked for $100,000 and somehow talked them into it. And so that was the first like physical thing, the first business that I manifested, and people thought we were crazy. And when we opened the first day, we had a line around the corner and it never stopped. It's still there. I don't own it anymore, but it's been like, 24 years or something, and it's still going, which is awesome. That was the first time where I was like, wow, I guess I'm an entrepreneur. I don't know. I didn't take a single business class in college. And around that time I had, you kind of teed this up, so I'll go there. Around that time I had become a Christian, and I had a pretty intense conversion experience when I was 18 that was unexpected and I wasn't looking for. Some people might call it getting saved. And it was really real to me and really impactful. And so after I did the coffee thing, I was feeling drawn into ministry. And so I ended up shifting gears, changing my whole life, and jumping into this ministry called the House of Prayer. And my job was to create an atmosphere. Oh, that's interesting. To create an atmosphere of nonstop prayer and worship. So I was essentially a musician that trained other musicians how to improv, to tap into their intuition of what the room was needing or wanting, and then to play our instruments and to use our voices in a way that would shape the experience of that room. And so sometimes it would be really intense. Sometimes it would be really like loving and peaceful. And that was a really beautiful way to express my gifts and to feel connected to the divine. The only problem was I was gay, and I wasn't at a place where I was willing to call myself that as an identity. Because I don't know how much background you have in Christianity, but and things have changed a bit, but like there really wasn't space for any other identity other than my identities in Christ. Anything outside of that parameter was unacceptable and very, especially back then, very misunderstood. And so there were a couple years during that time where I was really wrestling with sensing that this was an authentic part of me that I was really trying very hard to keep in the shadow and keep suppressed so that I didn't fuck up my life and hurt other people. And as you know about shadow, and it will come out, even if it's sideways, right? And so I ended up in a situation where my staff, my bosses had said, hey, if you want to stay here and keep your job, you're going to have to go through conversion therapy. And for anyone who doesn't know what that is the really intense process of pray the gay away. It looks different, I guess, depending on what program you go through, but really intense therapy, I'd say programming versus deprogramming. And I surrendered to the whole process because at that point I didn't really know what else to do to not be gay, right? And so that season was really painful, as you can imagine. It was brutal, and I'm so glad that I went through it because now, 20 years later, the feedback that I get from most people are like, you're so authentic. How are you so authentic in a work environment? How are you so authentic in a relationship? And it's almost wild to get that feedback because there was a season of my life where I wasn't, and I wasn't able to be. And I think, most people have some version of that story where it's like our biggest pains and traumas, if we can alchemize them and if we can integrate them, they become the best parts of us. And I'm going to pause and see if you want me to keep rolling because I can keep going, or if there's anything you want to explore with what I just shared.
I'm having like a full body reaction to what you've just shared. So I often find that words are just a very pathetic attempt at capturing energy and communicating. Thank you for sharing that. And I would love for you to keep going.
Yeah. And I don't know if people will be listening and not seeing you, but Nicole has her hands on her chest and she's like got her eyes locked with me, and I can feel you. And so I'm mirroring that back to you. Thank you for that. So I didn't stay there. I couldn't.
Yeah.
I couldn't. You can't stay in a place where you're not able to be true to who you are and shine. And that was 2011. 11's my favorite number, and it was the worst year of my life, and I'm still devastated about it. And also it cracked me open. And I ended up leaving ministry. I had no money, no money. I had no career because I was an education major who started a coffee shop and graduated without certification to teach, nor did I want to at that point. And I moved into my mother's basement. And if you knew my mother, I love her, but that was like the symbolic rock bottom to be in her basement. And it was one of those moments in life where it's like, man, I have fallen and I have no idea how I'm going to climb out of this hole. And I have no idea who I am or what I even want to do. Like, dreaming did not feel possible, right? I was in like pure survival mode. And I knew I had to get a job. And so I got an interview for a general manager position at Brugger's Bagels. And I'm sitting here with the district manager. He's like, "You're overqualified. Like, you'll be so bored." And I'm like, "You pay $65,000 a year in health insurance, and I've never made that kind of money before. And I know I'd be great at it." And he was like, "Look, I'll hire you, but I want to give you 2 weeks to keep putting yourself out there because I feel like there's something better for you." And I left that interview being like, that was weird and cool. Got a job, And a couple days later, this guy reaches out to me on LinkedIn. His name's Ford Knowlton. And he goes, "Hey, have you ever heard of Epiphio? You sound like us." I was like, "Epiphio? I sound like you? What is he talking about?" So I do some research, and Epiphio is a startup in Cincinnati. It's the first explainer video company on the planet. So, I mean, how do you communicate who you are, what you built, why the hell anyone should care in 60 seconds or less, usually through an animated video. They created that. And he's like, "You sound like us." And so he invites me to come down for lunch. I end up getting a job at this place. I'd never made a video in my life. And I'm thrown, in true startup fashion, I'm thrown into the deep end, and I'm on a call with Hertz, my first corporate client. But what I brought to the table was an opinion and creative thinking, and I was a good writer. I knew that. I took a lot of creative writing classes in college, and I pitched them some concepts, wrote a couple scripts. I'd never written a script in my life, and they fucking loved it. And they ordered like 7 more videos. And I was like, "Oh gosh, I'm so glad I'm not making bagels."
I've made bagels for a job. It's actually not that bad. I gained a little bit of weight, but I consider myself a bagel aficionado now, and it's a life skill I'm proud to have.
What's your favorite bagel?
I love just a good old-fashioned sesame bagel.
Yeah. Cream cheese. Yeah. What do you put on it?
It depends. I'm not one of those people, like, my coffee's different every day. My bagel's going to be, it's really mood based, and bagels now are a treat because it is hard to find a good bagel. And I'm just not going to waste my time on an average bagel.
Yeah.
So it really depends. But if I know it's going to be a good bagel, yeah, I'm going to do a schmear. It's probably going to have some like chives in it, maybe some tomato, but that's about as fancy as I'm going to want.
Yeah, you like a savory bagel.
Yeah, I'm a savory, a bitters and savory kind of person. Those are my treats.
Yeah, nice.
I'm not a sweet and sour. Yeah.
Amazing. So jumping back in, I found myself there, and my role changed throughout the 4 years I was there, but essentially I was being shaped into a creative director who also knew how to produce. And so, and it really was a perfect job for me because now that I understand myself and have more language, I would describe myself to be ADHD. So the ADHD part of my brain that can be really creative and big and expansive and very quickly explore all sorts of ideas and make connections. And it's like, oh, okay, this concept is like this metaphor. That's an interesting way to tell a story. I could do that very quickly. And then hyperfocus, the autism, hyperfocus, and just like crank out a script in no time and like arrange a team. And here's how we're going to be super efficient with the budget. And I was able to flow really well between both of those states. And I had a lot of fun doing it. And I'm grateful for that job because it brought an aliveness to my being that I had lost. And I had lost so much that I was excommunicated. I was told by my authority that I was demonic and going to hell, right? So there was a huge energetic drain in my aliveness, and not just here on earth, but my eternal sense of self was just shattered. And so I was grateful for this job because I felt energy coming back into my body and purpose and fun and creativity. And I made all sorts of connections with humans all over the planet. And that's where I really have to say I got lucky because I was one of the first people talking to these big companies. This is where you're kind of teeing this up earlier. It's like, pick a company, and I've probably worked with them. Microsoft, Visa, Uber, Facebook, Google. I've been in most of their headquarters. Like I flew all over the world and got to be in the room with the people building these companies. And I got to be the creative one, the storyteller, the one who said, you think that's the most interesting thing about you and what you're doing, but I've got another perspective. What if this? And those were really fun and powerful conversations to have. And as much as I have to say about how that place shaped me in positive ways, and I won't go into it a ton here, but it was one of the first companies that really also harmed me because the founders were fundamental Christians. And my exit interview, I was told that by the CEO that I wish I had more time with you so I could help you see that your lifestyle will inevitably bring destruction. Because a couple months before that, I had come out. So it's that progression of finding myself, sensing my authenticity, trying to find the courage to express it and state it out loud. And then when I finally was at a place where I could do that, I had to go again because I was not welcome in that space to fully be myself. And I'm thankful for that experience. The way that I integrate all of that and heal from it is I take that and I say, okay, great. What if I can create a company or companies that actually make it possible for people to be whatever version of themselves that they are, and also to reinvent themselves and not get stuck in a certain identity. And I'm happy to dive into different ways that we play with that at Jumpsuit. And I'm so proud. Like, Jumpsuit is a creative agency. I'll just give some context. Jumpsuit's a creative agency I started 7 years ago. And it was really like, it wasn't an agency at first. It was really me hopping out of this 9-to-5 employee dynamic. At that point in time, I was a creative director at a big agency. And I was like, I was not able to be creative there, and I was not able to express my full being there. And that's just how the system is. It's not like anyone's fault. It's just like, get in line, do the job, and don't stir the waters. And I am a water stirrer. I can't help it. And I don't even intend to be. It's like it's my being. It's right. It just follows me. Yeah. And so I had to jump. I had to go. I had to free fall into another moment in my life where I have no idea how I'm going to make money or survive or live, but I cannot stay here. And I sold my house in Cincinnati. I moved to Nashville, started an LLC, and I was essentially a freelancer for hire. And I had to prove to myself first that I could survive, that clients would still want to work with me, and that I could pay my bills. But I knew I did not want to be a freelancer. I wanted to create something that could scale and support other people so that I could co-create and collaborate. And the first year I took that jump, I made $500,000, and clients were so excited to work with me. And they were like, it's okay if we only knew you as the video person. We know you are infinitely creative and capable of finding awesome people and getting anything done. What else do you want to do? And so Jumpsuit scaled that way. I pulled in all the people that I loved to work with, product designers and brand people. And so we built together this full service creative agency that can do just about anything. Very generalist in nature. A lot of agency founders, like, in order to differentiate or be worth a higher multiplier when they go to exit. They're like, we have to specialize and only do one thing and do it best. And that's just not how I am. And that's not how my brain is. I'm a world builder. And so Jumpsuit became that. And what's cool about Jumpsuit, there's a lot of things I could say. I sensed early on that Jumpsuit was a living, breathing organism that would change whenever someone new entered it. And I've always talked about it this way. And I'm understanding it more and more over the years as I expand consciousness of what that actually means. But I could sense in my being when Emily joined the team, it's like the organism changed because her energy's here and her skills are here and her influence, her thumbprint on culture's here. And so now it's a different being. And then I'd pull in Fletcher and it's like, and now it's different. And I allowed that process of humans first, humans that I deeply trusted in the trenches with me, to come in, and then that actually shape our offerings. That actually influenced the culture. So instead of being prescriptive up front and top down, this is what we'll sell and this is the things that we agree on, get in line. I was always sensing who's here. What is this unique DNA now that these 5 humans are interacting? Like, what does Jumpsuit feel like? What's our essence now? Because that's authentic. It's because it's actually what's happening. And then how do we maybe put a camera on it or turn that into a piece of content so we can start to reflect that out into the world a little bit? And I had never ever wanted to run an ad. I wanted to do everything organically because I wanted organic, authentic connection. I wanted anyone who wanted to hire Jumpsuit as a client to come because they were resonating with us, because they loved our creative edge, or they felt like our team had integrity, or whatever it was that was drawing them. That's how I wanted to grow. And we grew that way. I mean, we're a multimillion-dollar agency. We've been around for 7 years, and I wish I had the exact data point right now, but I've put millions and millions and millions and millions of dollars into the pockets of the people that I love. And we've built that together. And no one's an employee. Everyone's a free agent. So that's the other beautiful thing about this container is you can have your own clients. You can work with other agencies. That will not be a threat. That's actually so essential to your own livelihood and aliveness. You can come and go. You can work with us 1 year and be gone for 3 years and come back. And we're so excited. It's that is liberating. It is, it's a beautiful way to experience collaboration. And we did that early on. We weren't the first company operating that way, but we were one of the first to really do it well. And now I'm going to pause and see if there's any questions or anything that you want to say.
I want to circle back because I feel like we're not quite at present day, but we're getting close. And there's a few questions I just want to ask you in terms of your work, excuse me, your day to day, some of your definitions, and then we're going to come back to this point. Is that okay?
Yeah.
Okay. Beautiful. So, and this is also just me kind of knowing a little bit what's going on behind the scenes, but not dissimilar to starting a coffee shop without being a huge fan of coffee. You knew the atmosphere you wanted to create. In terms of this agency, you're not doing the quote unquote creative. You're not the one that's sitting behind a computer creating graphics or editing video or doing, what I think a lot of people assume is the work behind the agency. You built this world. And how did you bring all of the pieces together without feeling like you needed to be in it doing it?
Amazing question. I was the one doing it at first. I was doing everything at first.
Okay.
The first year or two, I was selling, I was scoping, I was pitching, I was doing the work. And then the moment I couldn't do the thing, either because I didn't have the bandwidth or it wasn't my skill set, I would pull someone in. And
There you go.
that was how the first couple of years felt. And then it really popped off. And I mean,
some would say making 500 grand is popping off, girl.
that's true. I popped off in a way that we were scaling fast.
Right.
And remember, 0 employees, right? And so there weren't, I had to figure out how to be able to do that legally. I had to figure out how to trust certain people who weren't an employee to make some decisions around my finances and make some decisions around who we brought onto certain projects, resourcing, stuff like that. But again, because the way that I started with people that I loved so much and trusted so much, it became really apparent who my core team was. And I trusted them. I mean, it's as simple as that. I trusted them to make decisions, and I trusted their intuition and discernment on when to pull me in. And that would be if they got stuck, or if it wasn't appropriate for them to make the decision because I'm the founder. And it just worked. I would also say, in addition to, so it was me at first, and then I started to delegate. And as I delegated, then I was able to cherry pick the clients and the projects that I wanted to participate in, and to what degree. And so at this point in time, there had been a 2-year window that I didn't do anything for Jumpsuit other than a couple meetings to make sure that it's running itself okay. And because I had built a tech company that I just sold in November. And it wasn't until like a month ago that I decided to scope myself back into a project as a creative director, which is with the client, one of the clients you brought us, because I'm so excited about the founder and it's world building, and I couldn't help myself. So I am at a place of privilege now to where I get to decide what sales calls I want to be on, what projects I want to scope myself into, as well as how much time and energy I give this thing that I created 7 years ago. And that's been the trippiest thing recently, honestly, is like we create things and then they take on their own energy and life form. And then it's a constant practice there's no time, every quarter, every year. I don't know. There's a constant practice of having to look at the thing and say, does it still bring me life? Is it still alive? Is it time to compost it? Does it need to shapeshift? Like, what is this being needing? And what is the relationship that I want to have with it? And trust me, I haven't done that perfectly. There have been seasons where I've fallen into like pure depression because I'm needing to work on boundaries with this thing. And I'm needing to walk through the experience of like feeling responsible and also giving myself the opportunity to still follow my own aliveness while having created a thing that provides money and stability and flow to all the people I love. Every relationship in my life is a dual relationship, almost every single one. And there are a lot of people who will not enter dual relationships, and I don't judge them for that. It's a really hard thing to do. And I mean, this honestly could be its own podcast of like dual relationships and boundaries and all of that. But it's like, it's so beautiful, and it heals me, and it pushes me to expand. And so therefore, I view my relationship with Jumpsuit now as its primary steward, and I get to enter it and leave it just like anyone else, that I created that opportunity for anyone else, right? And if that means someday it's demanding something of me that I don't have a full-bodied yes for, and I want to be somewhere else, then I'm going to have to let that thing go or die, you know? I don't know exactly how to look, but we'll do it consciously and we'll figure it out. And so it's certainly a big piece of me. And yet I'm over here because I can't help myself. And I'm like, right now I'm working with Nils on this idea of creating an institution. And I'm over here working with Pam and some people around starting a church, but not the kind of church that you would imagine. And I'm over here, and so I'm like, I've got my hands in some more entrepreneurial endeavors, but because I'm looking at it from such a high level, I actually see how they all interconnect and how flow comes from one to the other, and how Larissa, a person that and that I am collaborating deeply with right now, I see how she fits into multiple of these entities. And so it actually doesn't feel that hard to hold all of these moving pieces when I can zoom up and see the big picture. And that's just, I think, another level of that ADHD, neurodivergent capability of being able to zoom out and then zoom in and not get stuck.
It's interesting. I have a question I want to ask, but I feel like this reflection will be fun for you because you described when you first started, AKA the coffee shop, going to the adults to be able to build out this structure. And what, you were spending a lot of your time doing was moving in spaces, using your intuition to shape the atmosphere. And now you're the adult witnessing these spaces, using your intuition to shape the atmosphere. Do you feel like an adult?
What a good question. That's so funny because I have a crowdcast live stream tomorrow called Recess. Yeah. Yeah, in some ways I do, and in some ways I don't think I ever will.
Yeah.
There's a huge part of me that loves play, that just wants to hang out with my friends and have fun. And it's not that I don't want to have responsibilities. I have a lot of responsibilities, and I have an impeccable executive function ability. But also I do look at life as like, oh, why did it get so serious? Why did we create so many systems and structures that like are draining our energy and killing our soul? Like I've been doing taxes.
Yeah, me too. That deadline.
It's like,
I think it's tomorrow.
I know. Well, and I was audited by the IRS. And so I had to like spend $40,000 to prove that I owed nothing. And because they just kept being, and then let's look at this year. And then let's look at this year. And I was like, when will this ever end on top of the taxes that I have to? Anyway, so it's like we as humans, we've created these things. And so the integration, the being able to be like a human in a 3D world and play the game is still very much a part of my reality. And I love to be someone that's like, can we play a different game? Or can we play a game within the game? Which is kind of the concept behind this church. And that's fun for me. I mean, I guess that's like an integration of like having to be an adult and still approaching it with like that child spirit, that beginner mindset. And that's what I do across most areas of my life.
So my question was going to be, what is your work, air quotes, for those listening? And I think it's an interesting question to ask leaders. I think adult, again, can be one of those terms that's loaded. And I'll often describe it as like big people, little people, and not from a place of judgment, but just that kind of what I'm hearing is like that weight of responsibility. I'll also describe like the structures and systems as simply being there to support you, quite literally, like any structure can. And, why do we create them? To support us on our bad days. But yeah, when they become obligatory, when you start feeling resentment, it's time to like smash them out and build something new. I think you described your work, but I'm curious, like on a day to day or week to week or, however that time cycle works for you, what does your work look like?
Good question. I have shifted from an existence where I was very time blocked. So a couple years ago, I was playing the everything's optimized, efficient. Every 30 minutes, I'm knocking out a new thing and I'm shifting gears hardcore. That created a huge toll on my body without getting into my whole health story, like autoimmune stuff and anxiety and depression. Went on a whole psychedelic therapy journey, and that's really helped me shift into a new way of working. And what I'm experimenting with right now is less about what I do hour to hour and more how I focus my days. So like Mondays, I don't take meetings. And Mondays I do therapy. And Mondays I integrate all that has happened the week before, which is a lot. And so I give myself space to start the week. When Monday's normally like hot and heavy, I say, no, I'm going to have a different energy today.
Yep.
And then Tuesdays and Thursdays, I'm available to Jumpsuit. And it just kind of depends on what that week's needing. Sometimes I'm on a sales call. So there's a new client that wants to maybe hire us. I get to meet them, do some discovery, figure out if we're a good fit, and work with our team on what we want to propose back to them, what working with us could look like. So I do a lot of that. As I mentioned before, sometimes I'll scope myself into work. And so sometimes I will drop down into, I'm actually writing something, or I'm collaborating with a brand designer because I've got a vision for how a brand could get built, but I'm not the one to bring the visuals to life. I'm more of like a words, concepts, written kind of person. So sometimes I'm doing that. I have an ops call. So I'm looking at our money and our processes and our people. Do we have the right people? Sometimes I'm doing podcasts. And I do have a chunk of time on Fridays, usually, to be available to all these other people who are adjacent to Jumpsuit, who are wanting to create with me, but maybe not in that container. So I mentioned a couple examples of what that looks like right now. And then Wednesdays are production days. And so I've been really committed over the past year to create content regularly. So sometimes it's a podcast, sometimes it's a mini documentary, sometimes I channel and put out a transmission to my Patreon. But I give myself a creative day just to get out. And also I'm not super rigid on that. I'm experimenting. That's what my energy is wanting right now. But if something needs to shift or I need to become more time blocked or something, I feel like my nervous system actually has the capacity to be more fluid. And I feel like my ability to hold boundaries and communicate what I'm needing has strengthened. So it's more about just, again, preserving that aliveness within myself.
Beautiful. I can relate to everything you said. I want to talk a little bit about your creative process, if that's okay. I mean, I'm assuming, correct me if I'm wrong, you would consider yourself to be an artist.
Yeah, I don't know that I would have always used that term.
Totally.
I would have said, yes, creative. Yes, creator. But I think for a long time I viewed artists as, people who painted or danced or something.
Yeah, have an MFA.
Yeah, exactly. Maybe the closest I would get to that is like, yeah, I'm a musician. But yeah, my art just looks very different.
Yeah.
I'd use that term.
As it should. Thank you for that clarification. One of my, I think, secret missions is to sort of break down the walls around that word, because I think, especially in the United States, it's been commodified, to put it simply. So I want everyone to reclaim it, but that's for everyone to choose. I digress. Would you mind helping people understand what your creative process is?
Yeah, happy to.
Thank you.
And before I do, I like Rick Rubin. Okay, he's like the Ram Dass of creativity.
Yeah. Yeah.
But he has really good examples. Like, is he an artist, or does he like help other artists bring their art into form in a way that like the masses can really experience and receive? And the answer is yes to both.
Yeah.
But people have really different perceptions of him. I resonate with that kind of artistry.
As do I. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. My creative process. I mean, I suppose it depends on what I'm creating. But if I had to think generally, it usually starts with an exploration that I just can't stop going down a rabbit hole with. I grab an idea and I can immediately like feel this electricity where it's like, this is not just a one-off, this is a world. This is a universe here. So I tend to look for things like that. And then I allow myself to just play with the world building conceptually. It's like, okay, and then it could be this, and then it could be this. Oh, wow. And then here's how it could make revenue. And here's how it doesn't matter if there's revenue at all. Like I'll just explore the whole, maybe not the whole, but like a really large landscape. And then I've learned to pause and say, was that the experience you wanted to have? And can you let that go and let someone else bring that into reality? If it's not for you, can you just let it go? Or is this something that you want to grab and like pull down and anchor and do something with? And I didn't always have the discernment to ask the question. And that pause is everything to me, because my neurodivergence and my superpower is I can fucking close a loop. And so if I get excited about something, it is really hard for me to not complete it. And now that I'm seeing so many things and so many possibilities, I just don't have the capacity to do them all. Although, which is a reason I'm really excited about AI and what we'll be able to do with it in the future. I'll be able to create more things because of that. But skill is in the pause there. And then instead of committing to building out this whole universe, I have leaned into my human design, that 1-3 line of like, can I just nerd out in the rabbit hole and then experiment? Can I just do a prototype or a pilot or a little bit of it and see if it's still fun and see if there's energy there and if people are energetically drawn to it and if other people want to come and collaborate. If that energy starts moving, then that's a clear indicator. If there's like a yes across the board, then it's like, great, let's make this into something. But sometimes it's like, cool, I did that. I don't really want to keep going, or I'm really enjoying this, but other people are like, meh, and so I'm always looking for the intersection of my aliveness and co-creation with other human beings. I rarely do anything that doesn't include those ingredients.
Okay, I have 2 more questions for you, but they're big ones. Okay, great. So I want to stay on this thread, but I want to circle it back around as well. So you've used words like discernment, intuition, aliveness. That all feels very spiritual. How do you weave your spirituality into your work? I'm tempted to ask more, but I'm just going to pause there.
I think everything's spiritual. I think connection to source or higher self is possible in everything. And so I don't really see them as distinct, is my first answer. And then I'll also say that a lot of the things that I'm making are very consciously and boldly spiritual right now in a way that I think makes some people uncomfortable, and some people like, holy shit, we're doing this in the business realm now. This is interesting. And it's interesting to me too, because as you've heard from my story, I've seen people attempt to mix religion into business, and I've been really burned by it.
That's what I wanted. As you've been talking, someone listening has to know, how did you reclaim your agency in spirituality while not bringing the pain from your religious experience?
Oh,
yeah, I told you it was a big one.
yeah, it was good. I mean, to be honest, I took a 10-year hiatus where I erected a big wall around me and God, or me and religion or spirituality.
Sure.
And I was like, I'm just not going to think about this right now.
Yeah.
I'm going to fall in love with my wife, and I'm going to get a house, and I'm going to be a normal human being. And I'm just going to not listen to you. I didn't even listen to music for a while.
Yep. I've been there. Yep.
I had to turn all of that off so that I could just, I don't know, find myself and settle and not be triggered or whatever. And I gave myself that. And then eventually, and really when I started using psychedelics, that's when it turned on. The first time I did psilocybin, I had one of the most profoundly spiritual experiences of my life. And I had really amazing stories from before. And I was in a charismatic ministry. It was like wild.
Yeah.
And I had the most profoundly spiritual experiences of my life with psychedelics. And it opened me back up to my connection with source and myself. And my whole paradigm of what it means to be human and what God is completely shifted. And also the need to like evangelize and tell everyone exactly what to believe fell away. Because even though I feel very strongly about my perception, my perspective of things, I'm also always changing, and I'm open now. And I can look at another human being at whatever level of consciousness they're in, whatever life's purpose they're in, and say, hey, great, I can honor that as a sacred path. Even the dark stuff, which took a minute to get to. It's like, I can see the divinity in you, and I can see and honor what you're exploring, and I can make the choice to be a part of it or not. And that self-sovereignty became everything to me. And that's the gift that I want to give to the world, is the encouragement to be authentic in your human experience, to live the life that you want to live, to build the things that you want to build, be with the people you want to be with, and just like allow and not try to control, and stay in connection, because I see that everything is one, and I'm constantly moving away from separation consciousness, while also reclaiming my own boundaries of what's delicious to me and who makes me feel good and what kind of life do I want to live, and giving myself permission to be audacious and making those choices for myself while allowing other people to do that as well. So I don't know if that totally answers your question, but whether it's my company or it's conversations like this or my experiments and mixing business and spirituality, I'm always reminding people of like, you get to choose. I'm not going to tell you what to believe. I'm going to share what I'm exploring. And if you have an issue with that, great. But like, this is me, and you do you. And that's brought a lot of liberation to me.
That was the perfect answer. Thank you. And I think it's going to, I don't know, what's the right word, like full circle, bring this all together. But one of the reasons we've connected is this idea that like everything is always changing, and we're in this constant state of evolution. And even your spirituality and your art and your work could look different on a day-to-day basis. And one of the problems, and what I kind of refer to as like 20th century business, is we did get bogged down in the structures and the systems because we love the expectation that this will be forever and the certainty of this is how it's done, therefore this is how it should be. But as we move into business 3.0, as you like to call it, I've been calling it 21st century business and the future of business. We're bringing this aliveness, which is also accompanied by death and rebirth, into these expectations and these structures and these systems, in the sense that we can agree to something, we can test it, we can play it through, we can realize what's working and what's not, or what's alive and what's dying, what can be repurposed and composted and therefore used as fertilizer. You know, if we're talking about the deconstruction of a lot of these different systems, we can use that rubble to rebuild. And you've already described actually how you're bringing this constant state of evolution into your day-to-day. You've mentioned this new institution and NILS and regenerative organizations and this willingness to kind of explore this new frontier. This is kind of where we hit pause in terms of your origin story, in terms of like all of these different projects that you're working on, because they're all part of this new ecosystem. And this willingness to kind of go, let's see if this is alive. This feels, you know, my intuition, my discernment is telling me it's a yes. And also tomorrow that could shift. Business is never allowed for that. So help people kind of understand how you're playing with this and the sandbox as opposed to the structure. And, you know, I know a lot of this is also being documented in real time, you know, that kind of like decade old, what is it, build in public. You're sharing this story in real time in a variety of different ways, and you'll be able to direct people towards that at the end. But this isn't just an idea for you. You are living this, you are breathing this, you are building this aliveness into the world of business and beyond psychedelics.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
They're a tool. But,
yeah, they're a tool.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, this is real. This is not conceptual. It's both. The first thing that I want to say that's actually very practical before I talk about all this new stuff that's emerging is with my very real company that's been around for a while, we have created some rituals for ourselves. And one ritual in particular happens once a year, and it's a container that happens once a year. It's called the Road Show. You may have seen some videos on it. And there's a few different rituals baked into that in-person experience that Jumpsuit creates for our collaborators. One ritual is we do a circle, and we do a reintroduction circle, which means you may have come last year or 2 years ago and you were this person doing these services, having this kind of human experience. And we do not assume that you're the same. And we actually give you a space to reintroduce yourself and say, this is who I am now. And we've had people change their names. We've had people say like, hey, you used to see me as someone who could be this amazing producer and get shit done. And I had a baby and I am like falling apart and I don't know how to channel that energy anymore. Do I still have value here? And we're like, fuck yeah, you do. And it's such a beautiful experience that our team gets to have. And it reminds us that we can change. We can even show up. Maybe we've been imagining a version of ourselves and we haven't put ourselves out there yet. And that's a moment that you could choose to do it in a safe space where you will be celebrated and supported. That's one ritual that happens there. And then another ritual is I work with Lala, who is one of my favorite human beings of all time. She's a performance artist. And she, every year at our road show, she explores expressing herself in an embodied way of what other, how do I put it? I'll say it this way. One year she was Sasquatch. The next year she was an alien. This year she's going to be a being that you cannot even put your finger on. Is it part insect, human, AI? Like, what is this? And people have this multidimensional experience of this performance art because on a 3D level, you're like, oh, an artist dressed up in a costume. That's interesting. And they're just like pure observer and they're experiencing Lala in that way. And then there's other people who really have like a higher dimensional understanding of what's actually happening, which is she is becoming that being. She's exploring the embodiment of that fourth dimensional or extra dimensional being in her body. And she's actually that. And she has a preparation and a integration process, and it takes days sometimes for her to come back into her own human form. And I don't even try to control how people perceive it. I just create a space where she can do that. And then I fucking love that I get to watch it happen. So Jumpsuit feels like that culturally. That just wanted to be said because it's so practical. And I think, maybe that's a little too out there for other companies, but the consideration is like, how can you integrate ceremony and ritual into your culture in a way that allows people the opportunity to sense and emerge as just a different being, or follow a different opportunity. There's so many creative ways of doing that.
Absolutely. I was just thinking like you're taking think outside the box to another dimension, which is so much of our corporate wounding is around the bullshit and the verbiage and the language. And when you make it real, it actually is impactful. When you think outside the box, AKA get out of your body, you are going to discover something completely different. You've been working with, we all think the Northern Europeans are the future. And so tell us about creating an organization that is alive and could potentially die, and working on projects that have timelines that are unpredictable and unknown until they emerge.
Aliveness is not a concept. It's an embodied experience. And there's a lot of different ways that you can tap into it, but it takes adopting the belief that we're actually here as human beings to experience aliveness, to prioritize it. Because everything in the world teaches us to ignore our feelings and ignore our intuition and stay in our lane and do the task at hand and just keep your head down and do the thing. And we know when we operate that way that our bodies are losing aliveness. Like we're getting sick, we're depressed, we're anxious. Like the signals are there. You look at an organization, a workplace, and the culture's toxic and people aren't happy and there's weird fucking power dynamics. And we've been so in it for so long that we think it's normal. And it is, it's like Las Vegas neon signs being like, hello, pay attention, look at me. We all know it. We just, I believe, haven't really seen it modeled. And we don't really know what the alternate options are because we haven't seen it before. And if we haven't seen it before, it means we have to be the ones who create it. We have to channel something entirely new, and we have to put ourselves out there and build something different. And that's a tricky thing to do.
Yeah.
And, and it's like business 2.0, popped off with all these tech startups and software and whatever. And it's like, in some ways, it was channeling a little bit of that energy. It's like, how can we innovate? How can we, whatever. But it's like, it prioritizes still such a toxic, for the most part, energy that's not prioritizing aliveness. And so business 3.0 is, that's the number one priority and goal. It cannot be profit. And it can't be so out there that money doesn't matter at all, because we also have to be able to pay our bills, or we start to lose aliveness because we get pulled back into survival energy, right? So it's that dance of how far can I stretch while still being practical right now. And a lot of the things that I dream about, like a world where money's an option, but there's other ways to trade energy and track energy. And it's like, maybe you've got land, maybe you've got, 3 months of committed, time and energy and attention to this project. Maybe you've got connections. Right now, we don't really have technology or culture that knows how to value that or track it or measure it or attribute it to you later. And we're starting to see some things like DAOs be able to make that possible. So I dream of things like that, and I'm starting to see them come into the ether. And there's probably going to be way more ways to do that besides a DAO. And I'm always kind of like, okay, this dream I have, this hope I have, is that something that could be done now? Is that 10 years from now? Is that like another lifetime? Like, I don't even always know that I know how to relate to the intuition and the dreams that I have. But what I can do is get present. As a futurist, it's like, I love playing there. And my path has to be get present with who's in front of me right now. What opportunities are in front of me right now? Where's my energy right now? And it's like a day-to-day decision of what I say yes to and what I say no to, and trusting that in following my intuition and my energy in the moment actually builds that world, and it models how to build that world. And, will I always do it perfectly? Definitely not. But do I think I'm doing it differently? And am I doing it in a way that's attracting energy and attention? Yes. Which is why I invest in documenting everything, just in case it's helpful, just in case there's like one thing I say that sparks someone else to follow their own aliveness, or actually like attempt to bring down into reality their dream. That's why I give so much of my time and energy to conversations like this and little, mini documentaries filming what we're doing, because to me, it's more than building in public. I'm actually playing with the idea of awakening in public.
Yeah.
What does it look like as a human being, a founder, to awaken? And what does it look like for a business entity to awaken? Like, I haven't seen that before. And I'm sure it exists. I haven't come across it in my channels. So I'm like, Jumpsuit's my container that I get to play with. And I don't even expect that everyone who collaborates with it is at the same awakening journey or on the same path that I am. There's still a place in the 3D for them to plug in and do a great job on a branding project, But the vibes are different. The culture is different, and the things I'm saying are different. That, if they want to play at other levels, the possibilities there, right? Otherwise, I'm making a religion and rules and creating a cult and telling people how they have to be and how they have to live. It's as simple as this, Nicole. Like, I am a being that is always evolving, and the things that I make, the company that I made, has to be able to evolve with me, or I'm going to have to let it go. It's the same thing with relationships. I'm married. Yeah. Right. So like, I've committed to a human being, and as much as my wife's name's Ashley, as much as I want Ashley to feel stable and secure and know that like my intention is that, we get to live life together in partnership, we both have to be able to evolve, and we have to be able to support the new versions that we're becoming, or it won't work, because the stuckness will come in, and the stuckness creates pain and trauma and fracture, and it will break, because everything always has to move. Evolution flows. And so as long as the containers I create and the relationships I have can flow, then I have confidence that we will do amazing things for the rest of our lives together. And if they can't, then we have to consciously separate or compost. And it's not easy, and it's a hard conversation to have, and it's hard, in the moment where you have to make those decisions, but that's how I approach life. And I was not always that way.
Wow. Thank you. Thank you so much for breaking that all down. I feel like I was going to ask you about Business 3.0, but it almost feels like the direction we should move in is just letting people know how they can awaken in public, how they can share this experience if they're curious about Business 3.0, or if they're curious about Jumpsuit Verse, if they're curious about everything we've talked about. Where can they find out more? What do you want to share in terms of what you're working on? I mean, you're building a church that isn't what anybody thinks. How can they kind of discover what that means? And if there's space for them in these explorations?
Yeah. Thank you for putting it that way. I would say the best place to follow me in a container where I share just about everything, not everything, but just about everything, would be my Patreon. And so that's patreon.com/jumpsuiters.
And all the links will be in the notes, but
yeah, great. Yeah, Patreon.
Okay.
That's the best place to stay in the loop. And then, if you're a business who wants to work with a creative partner or a consulting partner that thinks and operates in this way, who can get real shit done for you in the world, then we have Jumpsuit, the company over there. And then I should probably say that the Jumpsuit Verse, because you just use that phrase, the Jumpsuit Verse is a container that I created that needed to exist that was beyond my company itself. It's the cosmic playground of people who are like vibing with me or these ideas. And it's like a permission slip for us to explore and experiment and play. So the church idea is kind of like an emergent thing from that. It's not mine. It's actually like some other people are leading it right now, but I'm helping. I'll be on the board. And so that's like coming out of that energy a bit. And then there's, I think infinite conversations we'll have, and in real life experiences we'll have, and businesses that get created from the Jumpsuit Verse. So Patreon's going to be the best place to get a link to the Crowdcast to come play with us. I would say start there. And then as these ideas take shape and form, there will be further and further invitations to be a part of those as well. That's probably the simplest way. And I'm pretty active on LinkedIn. That's where I spend most of my time, just because it's such a funny social platform. It's so easy to disrupt. And so, DM me, say hi. Like, that's going to be the best place to get my attention.
Beautiful. There are a few Nicole Ayres out there, I realized in doing some of my research, including one who is an astronaut.
Yeah.
Yeah, she spells her name a little differently. But so if someone's going to find you on LinkedIn, Jumpsuit, Nicole Ayres Jumpsuit, that's how I found you. But,
yeah.
Okay, sweet.
That'd be great.
Excellent. Well, Nicole, wow. Again, I sometimes when my brain tries to find the right words to describe or capture the energy that I'm experiencing, it's just a complete failure. And then I realize I'm just like staring at a wall for minutes while someone's waiting for me to talk. There's a little bit of that happening.
Yeah, but I kind of want to, I know words are hard, especially, I know they're hard, but I do have a curiosity of how you perceive me and how you experience me.
Ooh,
I would love just to get that,
my little
that
projector
mirror,
just went, invitation,
that reflection.
I feel very anchored. Oftentimes I feel like I'm on a boat kind of navigating. I always think of that in the Narnia series. I think it's the third boat or the third book where they are on this boat, and it's like this glass like ocean, and there's no wind and nobody knows where we're going, and it's both magical and haunting at the same time. And I can often feel like I'm on that boat. And I go back to all of these like childhood books that I would read, and like A Wrinkle in Time. And anywho, I digress. You feel like an anchor. You feel like a lighthouse. You feel like this, like I said, this kind of intersection on the space-time continuum where I'm like, oh, that's a spot I can actually head towards, connect with, land upon, launch from. It's this grounding. And so like what I'm physically experiencing right now is this just beautiful, like an anchor. It just feels like, we can relax for a moment. This is, like you kind of described, someone who gets it, someone who's building. Accountability, I think, is a word that is also loaded, but I appreciate consistency and accountability in a way that I think others experience that appreciation is like intense or obligation. But it's just nice to actually see someone like walking the walk and being more busy walking the walk than talking about it. Which, like I struggle to keep up with the content and the output and the creativity and the projects. Like every time I kind of circle back around, there's 6 new things happening with you. And I love that energy. And so I just, I always say one of the reasons I do the work that I do is I feel like it is my service. And by supporting, I did a lot of volunteer work and work with a lot of clients and support a lot of artists. And that work creates the world I want to live in. And it's people like you that are actually building it and like rolling up your sleeves and getting in the trenches and getting real dirty and messy and vulnerable and brave and courageous and expansive. And so I'm so grateful. I'm so inspired. And, I think egoically, when I get to connect with people like yourself, it helps me, like I said, that lighthouse, that kind of guide point. It proves to me I'm on the right track. And I think, you had your worst year in 2011. I think I had my worst year in 2024. And so I'm in, I feel like I'm just on the other side of that cave, to sort of use Joseph Campbell's hero's journey. And although I feel like I have all of this and I've gained so much, I'm still not exactly sure what I'm doing with it in this moment. And so when I see a trusted guide on my path, I go, oh, okay, we're still headed in the right direction. Keep going, like one foot in front of the other. So thank you.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you for sharing that. It feels really, really good in my body. It feels good in my body. I know that we are envisioning a similar future and just really longing for more and more individuals to get it and to make it a reality, because it can feel very overwhelming. Like there's so many things that are broken, and it can take a lot of energy to crawl out of that low vibe, like experience of what the world feels like right now, and be able to jump up here and say, okay, but like this is possible, and let's do it right now. Like let's connect right now and give ourselves the experience right now that we're longing to have, even in this environment we're in. And it's showing up and doing that every day. It's like having an authentic conversation that we can show up vulnerably and be like, today I'm losing it. Yeah. I've lost my spark today, actually. And I don't know that I always had people around me that I felt safe to do that with, but I know that you're one person where it's like, you see that I'm a spark and you see that I'm a lighthouse, and I love that. And I love being in that role. And can I show up and say, I am so fucking tired today and I'm losing my spark, and how help me, help me, or just witness me. Maybe it's not even help me. It's like, just, can you be with that? And we do that for each other. And then, and we don't stay stuck. I used to be so afraid of sadness. Like it was going to take me down and swallow me up forever. And it's like, can we?
No, it's just energy. It's all just energy.
Yeah. Can we just witness it, be real with it, allow it to flow, and then pull ourselves back up and keep going. And I feel like I have that kind of relationship with you, even though we're just in the very beginning of knowing each other and building together. I very much appreciate your safe. I'm giving you a reflection now, like the safety that I feel coming from you. So thank you for that.
I have like 18 other things I want to talk to you about, but I'm gonna close this container for the now. Yeah, we're just at about the perfect time. So obviously, Nicole, I can't wait to continue playing with you. Recess is tomorrow. For anybody listening, recess will have already happened, but you'll be able to catch the replay. I think I am at my yoga studio when that's actually happening, but then we get to talk lots more tomorrow. So I'm excited, as for always, to see how all of this unfolds. So I appreciate you. Anything else before I stop recording? And you can say no.
No, I mean, I want to have another one. I mean,
I know.
let's keep going, but
Yeah.
I am so happy to end right here.
Yeah.